let me go on record as saying, remember, I'm a conservative, progressive conservative. The Premier is not, but we're friends. We're able to have, and I encourage you to get involved with politics, whichever party you want. If it's not the Conservatives, don't tell me, but it's very important to be able to have civil discussions. I commend all politicians for their public service, the hard work they do, and we're going to start right in. And the first question...
While there are legitimate costs that can be expensed while setting up the ORPP, how do you justify giving away $2 million in severance for the top 6 executives, including Saad Rafi, the CEO of the ORPP, who received over $825,000 in total compensation for just 6 months of work? I understand that bonuses and packages are a form of attracting top talent, and that $70 million is a small price in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Ontarians paying for an enhanced CPP. However, with the taxpayers' money now squandered, how do you justify the wastage of resources and the large severance packages against the failure of the plan?
So, thank you for the question. And
thank you.
You're
much politer than I would be here.
But I have to challenge the premise of the question in terms of the failure of what we did with the ORPP. If I just take you back to the beginning of this process, our contention was, with all of the finance ministers across the country, and actually working with the former finance minister Jim Flaherty, who was a terrific guy. He actually at one point agreed that there needed to be an enhancement to the Canada Pension Plan, that it was not adequate. He was not allowed to go ahead with that, and finance ministers learned that there wasn't going to be any support from the federal government to do that. And so we determined that this was a serious enough situation. Remember, all of the finance ministers across the country agreed that there needed to be a change. They didn't all agree on the quantum, but they agreed that there needed to be a change. And so we were in a situation of either letting that go, and we had a prime minister at the time who wasn't interested in working with the provinces on it, or we could move ahead and set up a plan that would be the responsible thing to do for, quite frankly, most of the people in this room. So there was a lot of work that was done, and I believe, and I've said this publicly, that had we not done that work, we actually would not have been in a position to sit at the table with the rest of the provinces when the new Prime Minister was elected, and we would not have been able to push the notion that we needed to have a CPP enhancement.
According to the provincial newsroom, between December 2014 and June 2016, 15% of companies added one or more women to their boards. However, Osler, Hoskin, and Harcourt's 2016 diversity report shows 46% of companies still have no women on their boards, and that on average, the proportion of female executive offices is 15% and has not changed in 2015 or 2016. Do you think the comply or explain model will be effective in the long run, or do you think there may be a better way to resolve this problem?
Well, I'm glad to hear you're not satisfied with the answer. I'm not satisfied with the progress. I think there is more that we need to do. We've asked a group of women to give us some advice, and one of the things that they have said is that we need to have targets. We need to set targets, and we're looking at that. I think having a 30% target for boards is a good objective.
But a recent poll by the Toronto Sun found that 52% of Ontario residents oppose public funding of Catholic schools. You've claimed your government, quote, sees Ontario's diverse population as an asset to be exalted, and you've recently announced new provincial diversity targets. I therefore have to ask why more action hasn't been taken with regards to promoting fairness and diversity in Ontario's education system.
So my response is this, that the school system as it exists in Ontario is not the school system that if we were setting it up today, we would create. We are not going to enter into a decade-long civil battle about church and state. It would be a huge distraction, and I mean a distraction from student excellence. It would consume enormous resources, and it would be a fight that maybe some premier at some point will take on, but But I really have, I have searched my soul about this one, and we've determined that we're not going to do it.
So as the province's top politician, when is it no longer acceptable to avoid advocacy, considering the struggles the gay community continues to face? Thank you.
What happened when I became a politician and when I became the premier and was in a leadership position, people attributed a lot of characteristics to me and tried to attribute to me a fight that I had undertaken and give me kudos for that struggle. And I have never felt that I have really been that. But the most important thing I can do is to be open and honest about who I am, to bring my whole self to policy discussions. And the work that we have done as a government to improve equity, to fight against and put policies in place on sexual assault and violence on transgendered people with the support of other parties, usually the NDP. We have done a lot of work that, quite frankly, I'm not sure would have been done otherwise.
According to Human Rights Watch, all 3 countries have a questionable record on human rights. What importance do you place on issues of social responsibility when negotiating trade agreements? Or do you prefer to keep a blind eye on human rights in the interest of deeper economic ties?
Well, I certainly don't want to turn a blind eye to human rights abuses. I mean, that is not who I am. It's not what I do. And when I have traveled to both India and China, I've had conversations about women in society. I've had conversations about lesbian and gay issues. I threaten the status quo in those countries just by showing up, just by being there. I challenge the norms.
Considering the costs involved in running a political party, donations and fundraisers will continue to be a necessary part of our political process. So going forward, what guidelines would you believe can be implemented based on Bill 201 in order to encourage responsible fundraising activity for all political parties involved?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're well into crafting the legislation that will go to committee and then will go to third reading. And the principle that we're trying to get at is the delinking of fundraising and policy making, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're going farther than pretty much any other government in the country, except maybe Quebec. One of the things that will happen is that there will be a public subsidy. So there will be an amount that flows to parties no matter what, based on their votes, and part of that money will go to riding associations, so that the reliance on fundraising will be diminished.
On behalf of Ryerson, again, 5 years in a row, good discussion.
Thank you for all the questions. Thank you.